During the British Grand Prix, Kevin Magnussen was yeeted into the barriers in what seemed like a fairly low-energy accident. Nonetheless, his wheel appeared to break loose from the chassis, something we see a lot less of these days thanks to mandatory wheel tethers. This particular incident was different to the Daniel Kvyat accident, which happened a few laps later, in which his wheel hub stayed attached to the car, but the rubber tyre was ripped loose. Wheel tethers cannot prevent that from happening. Wheel tethers are only designed to prevent a
Lucille! Watch out for Lucille! I don't care about Lucille! Stay alive!
So the wheel is attached to the wheel hub, which is part of the suspension assembly, which is attached to the chassis. Until the late 90s, that was basically it. So if the suspension broke in an accident or due to failure, the part with the wheel attached could just go flying away from the car at extremely high speeds, where it could hit another driver, a spectator, or one of the many circuit workers positioned close to the track. 2 marshals were killed by flying tyres in 2000 and 2001 each, as single wheel tethers failed to keep wheels fully attached. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to understand just how dangerous flying tyres can be, so we need to quickly discuss momentum. Whether something hitting you does damage or not very much depends on its momentum. Momentum is an object's mass multiplied by its velocity. Both are important. Momentum is how an object transfers its kinetic energy to you when it collides with you. A bus hitting you at just 10 km an hour is going to do you more injury than a pillow flying at you at 100 km an hour. Even though the pillow is going 10 times faster, motorway speed even, it weighs 10,000 times less. And as momentum is mass times velocity, the 10 times slower bus is hitting you with 1,000 times more momentum and carrying 100 times more kinetic energy. A Formula 1 tyre is about 10 kilograms in mass, a bit less at the front and a bit more at the back, but 10 is a nice round number to use. It flies off a car and hits something at, say, 100 kilometers an hour, which is not an absurd estimate, as these cars can get over 300 kilometers an hour. And that tyre is carrying momentum of about 280 kilogram meters per second, with a kinetic energy of about 4,000 joules. Now don't worry about all the units and stuff for now, just remember 280 and about 4,000 as a sense of scale. And I'm aware these are just numbers, and it's very hard to convey in animation exactly what this momentum feels like. How do I convey a sense of weight and impact? This is just a 4 kilogram weight. It's less than half the weight of an F1 tyre, and while most adult humans can lift it fairly easily, it's as heavy as, 4 bags of sugar, and you wouldn't want it dropping on your bare foot. If we drop it from about 1 metre off the ground, we can do a simple calculation to work out that the dumbbell will hit the ground with about 18 kilogram meters per second of momentum and be carrying around 40 joules of kinetic energy. Now, if you were lying on the ground and the weight fell on you, you could easily break a bone, crack a rib, or get some serious bruising. And this weight falling a short distance has over 15 times less momentum and 96 times less kinetic energy than a Formula 1 tyre hitting something at 100k. So what I'm saying is, we really don't want these tyres flying all over the place. Which brings us back to wheel tethers. Wheel tethers were made mandatory in 1998 and are essentially a way of tying the wheel to the chassis so that even if the suspension breaks, the wheel stays attached to the car instead of flinging off God knows where. One end of the tether is connected to the wheel hub, the part of the car you screw the wheel onto. The tether feeds through a suspension arm and is then attached to the survival cell at the car end. The tether itself is kind of like a high-tech rope made of Zylon fibres. Zylon is a very lightweight, man-made fibre polymer which has a number of extreme characteristics, such as it's resistant to heat and use as a ballistic protection, including in bulletproof vests and actually around the driver's cockpit to prevent penetration. It also is extremely resistant to being stretched and, most importantly for wheel tethering, has an extraordinarily high tensile strength. That is, how much force can the Xylon rope hold before it breaks? The wheel tethers are just 110 square millimeters in area and yet can support over 70 kilonewtons of tensile force, meaning a single wheel tether can suspend 9 Formula 1 cars without breaking. And each wheel must have 3 tethers attached to it. Now, this isn't to increase the overall tethering strength, but to allow for redundancies. Back when we only had the 1 tether per tyre, pre-2011, we'd still quite frequently see wheels go flying as the Xylon rope could break if cut or twisted by particular circumstances. So in 2011 a second mandatory tether was added, and in 2018 a third tether was required per tyre. Each tether must be proven to function completely on its own. The only reason for extra tethers is to allow for 1 or even 2 to fail and still keep the tyre attached to the car. As such, no more than 2 tethers can pass through the same suspension part and must be fastened at both ends completely independently of each other, 100mm apart at least. This way, even if one attachment point fails or is damaged, the other tethers will not be affected. Now, you'll only really see the Xylon if there's a tether failure, as the tether is entirely inside other parts of the car and the Xylon is kept inside an outer skin to protect it from damaging UV light. Now, there are 2 important things tethers cannot do with respect to keeping the wheel and car connected. The first is keeping the tyre attached to the wheel rim. If there's a tyre failure or an accident that causes the tyre to detach from the rim and go flying, there's no way to hang on to that tyre. Fortunately, the rubber tyre by itself is much lighter and flexible on its own and less likely to cause damage. The second thing the tether cannot do is prevent a wheel from detaching if it's improperly screwed onto the wheel hub. Mechanics with wheel guns will firmly connect the wheel to the hub, and the hub is the tethered part of the car. If the wheel nut is loose, the wheel can detach from the hub and cannot be stopped. It's for this reason that the FIA are extremely strict about making sure cars do not leave the pit lane with an insecure wheel nut. So all of this makes Magnussen's separated wheel at Silverstone particularly rare, and my guess is that the tethers were all broken by twisting and shearing as the right front suspension dug into the tyre barrier and the rest of the car twisted around that pivot point. Rather than a high energy collision, it was more of a ripping, tearing action at slower speeds, and as such, the tyre really didn't go anywhere. Who knows how many lives or injuries wheel tethers have saved over the years. We've seen some truly high energy impacts over and over again, and in almost every case, all 4 wheels have remained tethered to the survival cell and kept from doing damage away from the car. It's simple, unseen innovations like this that keep F1 incredibly safe despite its high energies.
You have one job, it's drop the weight on the cage. No, don't eat buttercream off it.